Hey everyone, Dr. D here, and in this video I'm going to answer more student questions. So let's find one. Alright, I haven't pre-screened any of these. Alright, here's a question. Alright, it's about balancing life. Right now I am a full-time college student, or full-time student and working full-time. I find it difficult managing and doing well both in school and work, as well as having a sense of balance in my personal life in terms of family, friends, and hobbies. I feel like there's not enough time to do everything and do it well. I am stressed and frustrated because I find myself having to make a lot of sacrifices in my personal time, which I don't like. What are your thoughts, suggestions, and/or advice in balancing student and work life? Okay, so I did touch on this in a previous video, but yeah, it is tough, and I can't say I fully relate because I didn't have to work when I was in college, and I still found college quite difficult even without having to work. So good on you for working and doing school and having your hobbies, whatever those are. It's tough, because when I was in college, when I wasn't in class, I was in my dorm room studying, and that's all I seemed to ever do. And even then, it was hard to make sure I got all the right grades all the time. So I could only imagine what you're going through, and that's why the statistics are pretty bad when it comes to success rates, student success rates for students who work full time. It's actually very low success, which is very unfortunate because it's not due to lack of effort or laziness. It's due to just having too much work. And so, what is my advice? My advice is, okay, I've got a few pieces of advice for you. One is, if you're going to work, try to find a job where you can kind of study at work. So, for example, I didn't work much when I was in college, but when I did work, I would only do jobs where I could study during work. They do exist. For example, if you're a desk assistant, I was a desk assistant in the dorms. So I sat there at a desk, and every so often I would check people's IDs if they were coming into the building or signing in a guest, or if they needed to check out a ping pong paddle or something for the recreation room. I'd check them out, ping pong balls and a ping pong paddle. I didn't really have much to do. I sat at a desk all day. So when I was sitting there, I was studying, and when students would walk up and check something out, I'd check them out, and then they would leave and play ping pong, and I'd go back to studying. So I've talked to students who have jobs like that. They sit at a desk all day, and unless they're doing something, they're studying the rest of the time. So try to find those awesome jobs where you can kind of sneak in some studying at the work, or find a job where your job is good experience for what you're trying to get into. Okay, or what I always tell students too is, if you can't work less and you can't study at work, then take fewer classes, because what you want to do is make sure to get good grades. Good grades are what's going to get you into nursing school. Good grades are what's going to get you into medical school or pharmacy school. Uh, it's no secret that these are good career paths, and so everyone is trying to get into these careers, and so the competition is intense. When I was younger, you could have a low 3 point something, like a 3.2, and get into nursing school. Nowadays, you have to have close to a 4.0 to get into nursing school. So the requirements to get into these programs is only going up because the competition's only going up. And so you have to have these really, really stellar grades, but how are you going to do that if you're working full time? It's just impossible. So again, try to find a job where you're working at, I'm sorry, you're studying at work if you can. Those are awesome jobs. If you can't, try to take it slow and steady, right? Take one class at a time, two classes at a time. You don't need to overburden yourself, and take 4 or 5 classes at a time. So So just be careful with that. But at the same time, it's very important to take care of your health, keep your hobbies, keep your health up, eat well, go to the gym, and make time for your family and friends. But it's you know there's only so many hours in the day, so you got to make the best time, most efficient time you have too. That's another thing I say: make the most efficient use of your time as possible. If you're going to wait in line somewhere, you should be studying. If you're going to go wait in the doctor's office, you should be studying. These types of things help you a lot. So make use of every minute. You shouldn't have any downtime where you're not studying or working or doing something that's moving you towards your goals. So I hope that helps. That's my best suggestion. I may not be the best person to ask because I didn't really, have to work during college. And so all I can say is make sure you get enough sleep. Someone, I heard something wise one time. I don't know who said the quote, but I like it. It's sleep more than you work more than you play, and play as much as you possibly can. Right? So I like that. I think you should live by that. That's good. Sleep more than you work more than you play, and play as much as humanly possible. All right. So if you live by that, you might be doing all right. Okay. So let's go on to another question. That was a very good question. Thank you for asking. I hope I helped out. Let's see another question here. All right, let's pick one. Making time for yourself. I like this question here. Making time for yourself. Every day, my routine is the same. I wake up, get ready for work, get off to work, and go straight home and do homework. Stay up pretty late studying and trying to get all my assignments crammed in before midnight. I feel like I don't have time to go to the gym anymore or do anything for myself, like hang out with family or go out with friends. I'm constantly tired. Even on days I do have a little time, I'm usually very worn out. I don't have the energy to work out, especially since I've been standing on my feet all day. Going to the gym is something that is always sacrificed every school semester. I really miss it. How do you balance work, school, and your personal life? Sorry, I know we were supposed to ask only one question, but how did you figure out what career path you wanted to take? This is my second year in college. I still have no idea of what I want to go into. I've just been getting in my basics out of the way for now. I feel like I'm wasting my time and have no direction. Thanks. Okay, so very similar to the last question, I guess. So every day you feel like your routine's the same. Actually, that's not a bad thing. You might think that's bad, but it's not bad, because a lot of times if you want to be efficient and you want to get things done, and get multiple things done, the best thing to have is a routine. When I was at my peak, I had a routine. I kind of knew what I was going to do tomorrow. I knew what I was going to do the next day, and I knew what I was going to do the next day. And I knew what we were going to do on Friday. I knew what we did on Tuesdays. So that helped me a lot, because I had certain times blocked out for the gym. I had certain times blocked out for, a night out to have fun. I had certain times blocked out for studying, which was most of the times. I had certain times blocked out. You see what I'm saying? I knew about what time to start getting ready for bed, and I knew what time to start getting ready for work. So, routines might seem boring, but they're also the best way to stay on top of things. It's like, well, I know when I get home, I get the laundry and the dishes out of the way. That's the best time to get it out of the way, because then I could have a quick dinner, bite to eat. I could go for a walk and then sit down with a hot cup of tea and study. And then I'll study, and maybe I'll listen to some soft music or some kind of classical music while I study. If you have these routines, in place, they'll help you a lot. They'll help you a lot to stay on top of stuff. So routines are actually a good thing, believe it or not. So you wake up, you get ready for work, you go to work, you go straight home, you do homework, you stay up late studying. Okay, so it sounds like, again, you've got a lot of work to do, but you also got homework, you got a lot of classes. Just, again, try to find a job where you can work, you can study at work, or try to take fewer classes. I know it's a bummer to take extra semesters of college, but it's worth it for your sanity, and it's worth it for the better grades you're going to get if you just take your time. You should really think of college like more like you're the turtle and not the hare. You remember the story of the turtle and the hare, or the tortoise and the hare, I should say. Who wins the race at the end? It's always the tortoise. The hare uses up all its energy. It gets overconfident. It gets burned out. Who knows? The hare rarely wins the race, and it's very unfortunate. But I see this time and time again every semester. Students are very, very ambitious, and they take on so much because they're so eager and so motivated, and so ambitious to go and work 40 hours and take 5 classes, and they want to be a nurse and they want to go to med school overnight and make it big, right? But then, they burn themselves out, or they fail to maintain the grades, and it's because they've overwhelmed themselves. So you just got to be careful. And a lot of times the students I see make it are the ones who say, okay, I have to be reasonable. I'm working X amount of hours, so I can only take this many classes, and I'm only going to take one science class at a time, and I'm going to stretch it out by taking some summer classes, but not too many. And so they make realistic goals, but then they work their best towards those realistic goals, and then they get good grades, but at a slow and steady pace. And that's maintainable, because let's say you have a life event. You know what a life event is? Like, let's say something drastic happens in your life, and it's terrible. Someone in your family gets hurt. Which is horrible. And you've got to go and take care of that, or you have a loss of some other kind, or something happens out of your control. Something terrible. It happens to all of us. It could happen to anyone. And if you have 5 classes and you're working 40 hours, how well are you going to maintain that major life event that pops into your life? You might be able to juggle 5 classes and 40 hours of work when everything's perfect, but what if something bad happens, which can happen to anybody? Well, then you'd be a lot better off with just 2 classes, for example, than 10 or 5 classes, I should say. So just try to think about the tortoise and try to be the tortoise. If you're trying to work at the same time, slow and steady wins the race. Slow and steady wins the race. What's the point of rushing if you never get to your goal? You got to try to take it slow and steady. Just keep your eyes on the prize, study really hard. And the best thing to do, which is what I tell students, is have doable plans, doable goals, and then do it. Do it with all of your effort. So hopefully that helps. I feel like I don't have time to go to the gym anymore. Yeah, that's tough. Even this semester, even me, I'm finding it harder to go to the gym because I've got so many things I'm juggling too this semester. I'm finding it hard to go to the gym myself, but I'm making an effort. And even when I can't go to the gym, I say, okay, I'm going to work outside the garden all day today, or okay, I'm going to get this other chore done. And it kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone, because I can, do this chore that's labor intensive, and that's kind of like working out, so I can justify it that way. So yeah, try to do stuff that you have to get done, and put in extra effort. Like, even if you have to do stuff around the house, do it with extra effort, and get in there and try to make a workout out of that if you don't have time to go to the gym. But like I said, routines are the best. If you want to go to the gym, have a routine. Just know, like, Wednesdays I go to the gym, and then just do it, without thinking about it. That's the best way. You're constantly tired. Yeah, you're staying up late and studying. That's why. Again, try to take fewer classes or work fewer hours. You're going to have more time to sleep. Okay, I'm usually very well worn out, and I don't have the energy to work out. Yeah, it's tough. When I was in college, I didn't even think about working out, and I always tell my students that was a regret of mine, because I got really out of shape. And then once you get out of shape, then it's even harder to focus on school, and you get tired even easier. So try to make it a priority to work out, and keep your exercise so that you don't feel tired like that. Going to the gym is something that always sacrificed. Yeah, again, routines are your best friend if you want to have a proper regimen, when you have a gym regimen and you have study and you have work and you have house chores and things like that. You want to balance everything. Routines are the best because you'll know, oh, on Mondays I go to work, and then when I get home I do this, this, and this, and then I go here and then I do that. So it's like it's programmed into your mind. It's like hardwired when you have a routine. Okay. So at the bottom here it says, how did you figure out the career path you wanted to take? What's funny was when I was in high school. I like I said, I think I mentioned this a lot of times. I was not really good in school up until college. Grade school, junior high, high school, I wasn't the best student, and it wasn't because um, I'm not sure. It wasn't because I didn't have good teachers. It just was. I kept jumping from school to school, and so I would jump around so much that it would get so confusing that I would just kind of give up, and so I felt like school wasn't for me when I was younger. Um, but then in high school, I started taking biology, and I still remember Miss Sloman's biology class at Army Navy Academy, and she was a great biology teacher, and she would introduce concepts to us. And a lot of those concepts were really interesting, especially DNA. I remember I really enjoyed learning about DNA and the structure of DNA and the concept of DNA. And I really, really became interested in DNA. And one time we took a college tour, and I went on a college tour up and down Southern California. We took a look at different schools, and I even remember one time we stopped at Pepperdine, the University of Pepperdine in Malibu, and I had some extra pocket money, and I decided to spend it on a genetics book. It was the weirdest thing. Imagine, I only had so much pocket money, but I spent it buying a genetics book at a Pepperdine bookstore. That's what I decided to spend my pocket money on. So the rest of the college tour, we drove all the way up to Stanford, from basically San Diego all the way up to San Francisco, all the way up to Stanford area and back down. Um, I sat on the bus for that tour reading a genetics book, because I was just genuinely curious. And right then and there, I said, I want to do genetics. And so from then on, I kind of got a passion for genetics. And I went to San Diego State. I majored in molecular biology. And then I went to a PhD program in genetics at UT Southwestern. And then I got my PhD in genetics. And then I did a lot of research in genetics. So um, I just, I found something in high school that grasped my attention and I was interested in. That's what drove me. And if you're in your second year and you still don't know, that doesn't mean anything. You could still figure it out. What I recommend is getting out there, maybe talking to people. Go to ask your friends who have graduated or are starting new fields. Ask them how they like it. Ask them if they could if you could interview them. Ask family members that might be in different fields how they enjoy it, what they do every day, and not just how they enjoy it, but what do they do every day. Because and then also, this is a big one. Find out if there are actual jobs in that field. Okay, because for example, today I wish I thought about if there are jobs more. I knew I loved genetics and I wanted to do research, but then the more I got into genetics and got my PhD and then I did my postdoctoral fellowships, then I started realizing, wow, this is great and all, and it's really, really fascinating and interesting, but where are all these jobs? There are no jobs. And so that's when I realized that, oh, wow, the jobs are really super hard to come across. So you may or may not want to go into a field that doesn't have very many jobs. So make sure there are jobs. Make sure you know what the jobs entail. Would you want to do those jobs every day? And how, do your research ahead of time. So it's don't rush into something, or go into it before you've done your research. I've just been getting basics out of the way. There's nothing wrong with that. So I hope this helps. I hope that's some advice. And like I said, that's just my advice. It's not gold. It's not some kind of standard. It's not some kind of my word is not bond. you know. So it's just my opinion. It's what I've seen and what I think is good advice. So what you're doing is good. You're asking for advice. You should take advice, think about it, ask for multiple people for their advice, and then figure out the best route for you, and then follow that advice. But with me, it's my advice is usually slow and steady wins the race. You know, go towards something that you are passionate about, but that has jobs at the end, and make sure you know what you're getting into before you actually do. Okay, so I hope that helps. Let's see if I can answer one more question tonight. Let's see. There's some good questions. Thank you, guys. Understanding biology. Oh, I already answered this one. I did answer this one the other night. Yes. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's find a different question. Making time. All of these questions seem the same. It's all about working and then having time. So let's see. I have a question. That's the theme of tonight, I guess. I have a question about making time for all your classes while working a full-time job and wanting to stay healthy and active as well. I think I just answered this. Sometimes I feel like I have to give up exercising. Yeah, because that's the easiest thing to give up, right? If you don't work, you get fired. If you don't study, you get bad grades. But if you don't exercise, the only one you're hurting is yourself. And that's why that's the first thing to go out the window, because, you're not going to get fired or fail a class because of stopping exercise. You're just going to feel more tired, and you're going to get more unhealthy. So I was the same way. That was the first thing to go out the window with me too when I was in college, because it's the lowest thing on your priority list at that age, but it shouldn't be. You should make it a priority, just like you have to make work a priority, or school a priority. You should make your health a priority. And again, the best way to do that is to have a routine. It's like, I'm going to go for a walk on these days, or I'm going to go to the gym on these days, or I'm going to study on these days, and I'm going to work on these days. But try to have balance. And there is such thing as doing too much. That's what I've been trying to tell you tonight. There is such thing as doing too much. If you're working too much and having too many classes and trying to go to the gym and trying to balance family the stuff and trying to balance hobbies, there's only so many hours in the day. And um, it could be impossible to balance. And then you might feel like you're not doing well, but it's not that you're not doing well. It's that what you've set yourself up to do is impossible. So here you are feeling bad because you feel like you're not doing very well, but you're not being realistic, in that you're not really telling yourself the truth, which is it's impossible to do well in that situation. Does that make sense? So don't set yourself up for failure. This is why I tell my students, don't set yourself up for failure. Don't try to do too much at once. There is a limit to what humans can accomplish within a 24-hour amount of time and still get sleep. So use that 24-hour day wisely, right? Think about what's most important. What's most important should be school and your health, and then work. Because you wouldn't be in school if it wasn't for trying to find a better job. So school should be more important than your job, and nothing is more important than your health, right? Nothing is more important than your health as well. So health and school should be your number one priority, and then your work should be somewhere in there, but it should be just what you're doing to get by, right? Your main focus is that job, and so your work, your school, so you can get the job you really want, and also maintaining your health. So once you are happy with that job, you're healthy, and you're having a great time with life. That's my advice anyway. I hope that helps. It's routines are really good for staying positive and active, and balancing things is good, but at the same time might be impossible if you're trying to balance too much. There is such thing as having too much going on at once. Okay, so just think about that. Also, like I said before, try to find jobs where you can work while studying. Those are the best jobs. Desk jobs are good for studying at work. Any kind of jobs where you're sitting down waiting for something to happen, that's a good job for studying at work. Okay, so, find those jobs where you can kind of study at work, and I think you'll be pretty happy with that. Okay, maybe one more. Maybe I could find a question that's not about work and life balance. Okay, study tips. Okay. Like a lot of people in our class, I don't have much time as I would want to be able to study because I work full time. Oh, full time! Yeah, you psyched me out. I thought it was about study tips, but it's about working full time and studying, just like the other questions. Are there any study tips you can provide so I can be more efficient? Now, this is a little bit of a different question. See, you're asking, about being more efficient, which is really good actually, because if you're going to work full time, then you only have so much time to study. And when you study, you got to be efficient, all right? So that's very good that you're thinking about that, because I've had students tell me, for example, oh, Dr. D, I've studied like 5 hours, and I really didn't get this concept. And I asked them, well, what did you do for that 5 hours? And I'll invariably get the answer, oh, well, I spent the time making note cards. Okay, I'm like, okay, so you spent the 5 hours making note cards of what I've already handed you, which is essentially note cards, right? So, the PowerPoints I give you guys, those PDF slides I give you guys, those are already kind of note cards. They're already brief little summaries of concepts. Those are already kind of note cards. So if you're spending 5 hours rewriting my note cards into your own note cards, are you really learning the material? You see, that's an example of spending time studying, but not really learning. Okay, there's a difference between study time and learning. You could spend a lot of time in front of your notes or in front of a book and not really learn. Or you could spend a lot shorter time and learn a lot. That's where efficiency comes into play. You should spend a lot of time trying to get the material into your brain and not a lot of time doing busy work and trying to fool yourself into thinking you're studying, right? So that's really good. So what are my tips and tricks? Again, don't do things that are busy work like rewriting what I already wrote or making note cards and things like that. Instead, treat my notes, the notes I give you, treat them like they're already study cards. They're already notes. And learn them. Start with the first slide. Explain it to yourself. If you don't understand it, look it up in the book. Go to the next slide. Explain it to yourself. If you don't understand it, look it up in the book. If you still don't understand it, go to Science Corner. If you still don't understand it, come to office hours. If you still don't understand it, ask a friend. If you still don't understand it, look online. You have so many resources. You got a million resources. So make sure you understand every little concept. Then start over. Go back to the first slide. Explain it to yourself. Put a check mark next to it. Go to the next slide. Explain it to yourself. Put a check mark next to it. When you've finished every slide will have a check mark next to it. Then start over again. Explain it to yourself in even more detail this time. Put a second check mark next to it. Once you have a second check mark next to every slide, start over again. Put a third check mark next to it. Why do I tell you this? Because that's what I used to do. That's how I used to study. I wouldn't stop studying, believe it or not, I wouldn't stop studying until I had 8 to 15 check marks next to each and every slide that I was trying to study. You know why? Because by the time I've looked at something and tried to explain it to myself 15 times, not only can I explain it, but I've memorized the whole thing and I know it inside, outside, backwards, upside down. I understand that concept. I could compare this concept to that concept. I could tell you what's different between this concept and that concept. I could tell you what's similar between this concept and that concept. In fact, I would be so confident about my exams, I would go into my exams wondering if there's a question on the exam that I wouldn't know the answer to, or if the professor could even come up with a question I couldn't answer. Because that's how much time I put into studying, not because I'm some super genius or something, because I'm not. I would put in so much effort, so much time into my studies that by 15 check marks, I could close my eyes and see the slide in front of my face and explain it to you. And I could even tell you where the coffee stain is on the slide, you know? That's the kind of dedication I had to studying. And I tell you, when I was that dedicated, I was on top of my game with the studying. I was always number one or two in the class at my college. I was either number one in the class, number two in the class, sometimes number three in the class, but I was just on top of it. And it wasn't because I was the smartest kid at the whole college. It was because I was studying twice as much as the second person in the class. And, you know, that's just dedication. If you put your heart and soul and dedication into something, you're going to succeed. You know, when I wasn't dedicated and I wasn't focused on learning, I was getting poor grades in grade school, junior high, high school. But when I was dedicated to learning and I was dedicated to understanding the material and spending the hours and hours and hours necessary to master the material, I was on top of my game. I was on top of the classes. I was at the top of the curve. So I've been at both ends. I've been the one who's the curve buster at the top of the class, and I've been the one who's barely passing the class. And I can tell you the difference is focusing on understanding, being dedicated, putting those hours in, and focus, focus, focus. You know, so when you're efficient at studying, you can spend less time and learn more, and you know you're learning it because you recall it, you can understand it, you can explain it. If you can't explain a concept, you don't really know the concept. And yes, it is possible to spend hours and hours and hours in front of your book or in front of your lecture notes and not really learn. So if you're someone who works full time and has a 40-hour work week and has other obligations, I implore you, don't do busy work when you're studying. Don't just write note cards and then run out of time before you spent 5 hours writing your note cards. Did you spend any time trying to learn what's on those note cards? No, and that's why you do poorly. You see, instead, trying to learn the material for 5 hours straight, now you're talking. Now you're gonna recall that material. But trying to write down that material into your own words for 5 hours straight, well, now you've run out of time and you haven't really even looked over those note cards. You see what I'm saying? If you're gonna have a full-time job and you're gonna have a limited amount of time to study, don't do busy work when you're studying. Do real, meaningful studying. Okay? And again, try to find opportunities to study, like in the dentist's patient waiting area, or the bus. If you have to sit in the bus, that's great time to study. Good students are always looking for opportunities to study. And so I hope that helps. Thank you for the questions, you guys. I could see a lot of you are really hard workers. Not only are you trying to work full time, but you're trying to do school. It's very, very, very awesome. Very, very, very commendable. But at the same time, I want to make sure that you understand it's going to be a challenge because you're trying to do two very difficult things. So don't make it harder on yourself than you have to. Don't try to do a full-time study, full-time school, full-time school, full-time work, especially if you're struggling. Make doable schedules and do it well. And then if you do that and you get straight A's, okay, well then add on some other classes. But don't start out in the deep end and then sink, right? So again, I hope this helps. I wish the best for all of my students, and so that's why I sit here and try to give you the best advice I have. But again, I'm just giving you my advice. I'm not a counselor or some kind of professional planner or anything like that, or advisor. I could just tell you from my own personal experience what I've seen works for students, what I've seen doesn't work so well. But everyone's situation's a little bit different. But I hope I help. I'm just telling you in general what I see. If you try to take my advice and it helps you, I'd be very happy about that. And maybe let me know if it does help you. Okay. And yeah, just keep the questions coming. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for listening. That's all I got for tonight. And tune in next time.